All right. We are connected for the Tuesday edition of the morning check-in. And as always, looking forward to connect to share my 2 cents on a variety of subject matter. And from the looks of things, it looks like negotiations are going well. But who are the negotiations with is a question. And so at this current moment, not a single media outlet will actually drill down into actually who are they talking to and how is all this progress being made within such short time frames to where it's enough to move the markets the way that it is. And so lots of interesting developments, but yet I came across an interesting meme image that to me depicts exactly what's happening, and it has nothing to do with the US actually sitting down and talking about something that's going to be beneficial for the US markets the way that we are led to believe that it is. So going to talk about that and a lot more. But before I move forward, for those who are plugged in, appreciate you for blessing me with your presence. As always, if you have not, make sure you share your thoughts, ideas, suggestions in the chat, and then we will just thumb through some things here to try to make it make sense at this current time frame. So, man, it's so much going on right now. So much going on right now. It's hard to actually determine what's true and what's false. But one thing is for sure: if it comes from the United States government, it definitely should be taken with a grain of salt because our government has every every they're putting forth every effort to make sure that they lie to the American public, which is what they do best. And so we are going to see so much market manipulation beyond what we have now that is not even funny anymore. But nevertheless, it shouldn't be funny. But give me a second here. I'm trying. I gotta do some last minute things on my end here, as always. But bear with me, good people. And we're gonna jump right into it uh, and go from there. Okay, so let me just update some things. Man, gotta make sure I'm up to date here. And so I have maybe 5 or 6 tabs open, all centered around, what I consider to be just, fake information, man. At this current moment, all they can do is lie to us and they lie straight to our faces. And nobody other than alternative media, and in particular me, like I'm sure there's other individuals out there, but from my news feed, I don't see other people out there calling these cats out for what they are, which are flat out liars, and giving American people a chance at actually discovering something real. And so, okay, we're gonna go from there. All right, so let me get back to my main screen here. So I'm gonna just thumb through some stuff here and give you my 2 cents on it, and of course, get yours. So feel free to throw out some thoughts, ideas, suggestions. Okay, so let me make sure I'm flowing on all cylinders here. Got too many tabs open. Let me know if my audio is coming in for those who are plugged in, so I know that I'm not talking to myself. With a little thumbs up in the chat, and we'll go from there. But okay, let's just jump right into it. Don't want to waste any time. Got to get this day moving. So, one thing that really stood out to me was the fact that we have stocks, in particular, S&P and the Dow at all-time highs. And as I bring it up on the screen here, we can look at gold and silver. And so, as usual, the ceiling was almost touched but rejected. And so we had silver get up to 59.80 and then it corrected. And then, of course, gold got up to 4,000, almost trying to touch 100, but it too was rejected. Not surprising. Take advantage of manipulation. Okay. But one thing that is heading down, which of course this news outlets are loving right now, is centered around energy. And so on the screen here, as I zoom in, you can see what WTI is over the last month, and it's dropping lower. So this is literally the last week. So from let me see what day what this was. This was last, so this is the first. So literally from the first at 86 or so dollars all the way now to $76 within a single, 4-day period, 3-day period of literally the Western media centered around the narratives given to us that there's some type of deal being worked out right now, and also that the strait is open and oil is flowing was enough to cause this, you know, increasingly significant drop of over $10 or so. And it's just Tuesday. And the reason I point this out is the fact that this is just what I consider to be early market movement. And it's until something changes, because there's no way that we get through the rest of this week without there being some type of advancement on the Iranian side at the very least, to where I'm seeing and hearing all types of things as where the U.S. is removing assets from certain regions that Iran has further spread out their assault on their bordering nations that support the US. And of course, ships were flowing all along the Iranian coastline. But here's the part that nobody's really talking about, that I'm from what I've seen, is that oil never stopped flowing. It's just no longer flowing solely in USD. Hence the idea of the petrodollar system itself is what is at stake. And so, because oil has not stopped, it's just not priced solely in USD. To me, that is a true indication of where we stand as an economy. The petrodollar system is not null and void because the average Joe and Jane, even the Western Hemisphere, are not talking about it, but the rest of the world really knows what's going on. And of course, the oil that is flowing, not priced in dollar, it's flowing east and not west. And that is the big problem that this administration has, because you can only lie so much and just tell the people that the straits are open, oil is flowing, deals are being made before people really start waking up. But then again, it's all about buying time. It's not really about solving anything, because, as I said before, you can't solve a problem that has no clear defining of what success would even equal. Nevertheless, against the Middle Eastern region where oil, for the most part, flows heavily. Okay, so I came across this meme I want to touch on, and this is what I consider, and what this person also considers to be, what real negotiations look like, that we're hearing so much about, as to how progress is being made. And it's centered around this image right here, that, of course, it's comical in nature, but to me, it tells the entire story. So literally, we have a man with his phone and Marco Rubio, obviously now out making public appearances talking about the progress we're making. So Scott Best and Marco Rubio and Donald Trump are the three individuals out here talking about how great things are moving along, where in actuality, it's like Trump talking to his Saudi version and his Iranian version at the same time, and then putting out a tweet: negotiations are going smooth. I expect a deal anytime soon. Of course, you expect a deal when you are making this stuff up on the fly. So I just thought this was a great comedic depiction of what's really happening behind the scenes, because anybody who has any length of rationale, as well as you know common sense, will believe that Iran is not sitting down and willingly going along with the Western's agenda. So this is from Sprinter Press, that has, let me see, they have 798,000 subscribers, and so they said last minute negotiations at the request of Saudi Arabia 6 hours ago. So I thought this was, too hard to pass up. But nevertheless, it doesn't matter. I guess good news is good news at this time, and so this is the good news we had right here. S&P 500 hits a record. Dow surges 700 points after Besant says Hormuz deal is near. So literally, all it took was Besant saying that a deal is near for the markets to respond favorably. And obviously, at this point, it's more algorithmically driven than it is actuality, because once again, you and I both know what's really happening here and what's at stake, which is what I hinted at earlier, is that it's more so the world moving away and Iran leading the way based upon activity in the Strait, away from the petrodollar system. And of course, you got a couple of companies that are apparently doing well, but once again, not enough to cause all-time highs in the U.S. equity markets. But just give you a little bit of what's going on here. It says stocks rose on Tuesday, fueled by strong quarterly results from companies such as Palantir and Caterpillar. So you mean to tell me this Tuesday morning we're supposed to believe that these two companies in particular were the primary drivers to just such exuberant responses of the markets in general? Okay. As oil price dropped amid optimism that the U.S. Iran deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz could be on the horizon. So all it took was the printing out on this news article here that there's a possibility that there could be on the horizon a deal, and you got Palantir and Caterpillar having great earnings, and that's enough to really just lead to all-time highs and everything. Okay, sure. But it says S&P 500 gained 1.1%. It had its fresh all-time high intraday high, while NASDAQ composite popped 1.6. Palantir rallied more than 26%. Mind you, Palantir is heavily dependent upon government contracts now. They're heavily embedded into the U.S. So literally, that growth there is more likely government sponsored growth, not actual real world growth for the most part. I'm sure there's more to the equation, but just something to be a little bit cautious of when you're hearing these narratives. Then it says Dow Industrial average climbed 722 points or 1.4%, led by a 6% rise in Caterpillar. So literally, the idea of a 6% of Caterpillar is what was enough to really surge the Dow Jones 1.4%. Says the 30 stock index also notched a new record high. And so here you have Scott Bessent making his rounds on Squawk Box. It says Treasury Secretary said in an interview on CBDC that we are in talks with Iranians. And so it's just this stuff here, the fact that they are continuing to spew outright propaganda. It is beyond the point of propaganda. It is flat out fraudulent. I would say treasonous, but it's done in the hopes of juicing and boosting American morale and confidence in markets to where you can't, I mean, you can call it, is it even treason? Like, lying to the American public blatantly. But then again, when propaganda is accepted, most people don't question it. Then it's not really, I guess, bad, I guess, because people buy it. So, and then of course, later on, Trump's going to say, look at your 401ks. But says he then added, there is a chance we may have a deal. So here's a problem when they're getting overly promising with these lies when they're talking about a deal. So there is a chance we may have a deal today or tomorrow to open the strait and move towards a more normalized position in this conflict. So here's the problem that we're going to run into. And this is how I say this is a fake pump, has no substance, because you're promising the hopes of a deal without actually defining what a deal is outside of us not wanting Iran to have nuclear armaments. But it says here a deal today or tomorrow. And so this is the problem the market's going to run into. You can only lie to juice the markets within a 24, 48-hour period before some of that hopium fades out. And so if there's no deal today or tomorrow, then what about come Thursday? What's going to happen to the markets Thursday? They're going to need another lie to juice the markets. They're going to need some type of diversion to further juice the markets, whether it be some type of fraudulent figures given to us by the government or some more earnings reports or something to keep this hopium alive that there's going to be a deal. And all they care about, obviously, is higher stock prices to give the illusion of our nation winning and lower West Texas intermediate futures dropping. And so long as oil price is low, the indexes are up, everything is hunky dory. While all along, their primary focus, meaning, Congress, is the Clarity Act. And so all this huffing and puffing of lying and jawboning the markets is centered around our government's desire to move forward with clarity. And mind you, clarity is centered all around the crypto stablecoin framework as to how institutions will operate in this sector. And of course, anything labeled from the government as a positive and beneficial act of any kind, we all know turns out to be more than what we bargained for. And so this is the world we're living in right now. And it's not quite sad, but it's reality. Okay, what else is going on here? So outside of what we're being sold, fake market activity, fake narratives, fake negotiations, the idea of this Japan issue is not going away no time soon because the US now is actively involved. We are the backstop for the JGBs and the issues that they're going to have out there because we are heavily invested in making sure that they remain operational as a nation state. So this is a interesting development here. It says global bond market on edge as Japanese yields soar after horrible 10-year JGB auction. So imagine if everything we're experiencing now is centered around sovereign debt issues and the inability of nation states to continue to borrow at what used to be affordable rates. You have Japan, who was always at ZERP or NERP for 30, 40 years, that unwinding in real time, and the entire U.S. economy having been built up on always having borrowers of our own, i.e., Japan and China and everybody else. And so it is no wonder why the U.S. is heavily pressed on making sure they intervene. So we had the Treasury intervene was it 24 hours ago, 48 hours ago. Now Scott Besson is coming out saying that he's now in collaboration with the Federal Reserve to make sure that they also provide some accommodative policy to make sure they help out our allies. And so we are literally becoming the outright backstop for another central bank. And the question is, who's going to back us when we need backing? Obviously, no one. And so we're going to experience more of the pain and pinch of all this monetary malfeasance that's taking place right now, because once again, it's all centered around this. And as long as they can keep this stuff under wraps, lie to the American public, it's going to work. So whether it's going to be short term or long term, it'll work in the near term. But I would not bet that this is going to be able to be sustainable beyond this year. Nevertheless, their ability to control and cap gold and silver at $60 for silver and 4,100 for gold much longer. And so between now and the end of this year, man, they're working overtime to make sure that the markets remain artificially favorable for who? We're going to find out. But just an idea here as to the JGB auction that is not going as expected. Because once again, if you see a nation having issues with too much debt, heavily concentrated within their own country, why would you actually go out to buy more of that junk? Literally, sovereign debt in of itself is junk. It just hasn't happened to be revealed here with U.S. liabilities just yet, because the world still runs upon our collateral for now. So just look at these surges in expectations of yield. And then you have here a dismal demand in the form of collapsing 2.56 bid to cover far below the 3.3 average, the lowest since May 2025. So, yeah, Japan is scrambling, and you better believe the U.S. is working hand and foot to make sure that they are monitoring this in real time. And so here is the surge in yield required to participate in acquiring 10-year junk bonds from Japan. Just cost you a little bit more. And ultimately, when you know you're not going to be repaid in something in the form of a currency it's going to be worth anything, how stupid could you be? Other than pension funds, hedge funds, and all the institutions that are supposed to be buying this stuff. Yeah, if you're smart, you'll run from it. But that's just my opinion. Okay, so let me just check in and see thoughts, ideas, suggestions. What are people talking about? Says, loving more content, Mike. I appreciate you. Try to check in when I can, how I can. And as you can see from the ticker above my head here, everything is in the green right now. So it's this false exuberance of the economy is doing great, which is newsworthy, because you better believe all the headline stories are talking about the fact that everything that can go up is going up, but everything that's supposed to go down is going down, i.e., yeah, as you see here, energy is going down. We got silver right now at 59.67. So, yeah, our country is in a mess right now. Like, share, subscribe. Appreciate you, man. And of course, God. Okay, so I got other things. I bookmark a lot of things here that I wanted to touch on. Let me grab it and just walk through some of the things that's trending right now and go from there. But for those who are coming in late, I start off by talking about why negotiations are going so well. They're going so well because it's literally the U.S. creating these false narratives amongst themselves to juice U.S. markets. And it's like Trump talking his Saudi version and his Iranian version at the White House. And that's why things are going so good right now, because they're lying right to your face. And Fox, CNN, even CNN's not calling them out on their bluff. Okay, so let me get to some bookmarks here. Lots of things I bookmarked. Let me get to it one by one and just share what I'm keeping my eyes on. Yeah, that man, like when it comes to crypto space, I'd imagine a part of this Clarity Act is centered around, once the parameters for how crypto will merge in the legacy system, then they're going to have to start offering protection in the form of services and products to institutions, as well as to the depositors that will be forced to put their funds into the banks because of this Coldcard situation. And just to give you the latest on that, because every accident happens on purpose for the sake of promoting and pushing agendas. And so here you have, as of 2 hours ago, the cold card wallet hack is getting worse. And so it said losses from the cold card hack now exceed $100 million, with over 1,500 BTC stolen from 7,300 addresses by at least 15 different attackers. So not only was it started off as a single entity, now it looks like there's multiple fronts taking advantage of the cold card exploit. So imagine 7,300 addresses where individuals actually use their fiat to buy Bitcoin, and they put it in what they thought was a secure wallet, and all of a sudden to find out that it wasn't as secure as needed. And so I'm seeing reports and stories of people put their life savings on this cold card wallet because they were doing what they were supposed to do as far as protecting and holding in their own possession what they thought was theirs. But the one thing that's become more and more obvious to me is that any hope in computer code moving forward in a world where you got the threat of quantum at some point, and you have these ever increasing and expanding language models that are just getting better and better by the day, it puts anything to do with software at risk. And we're going to find out those risks when it comes to the average Joe and Jane being the ones that are hijacked in real time, because institutions, they get first dibs at testing and trying to shore up their back ends to where they won't be exploited, but the average Joe and Jane will be. So this is a part of what's going to come as future clarity once the Clarity Act is moved forward. And then, of course, we have the idea of oil prices continuing to drop. They love and talking about that. That's not going nowhere. But here's another point where this could also be the primary reason why the U.S. is forced to come out with these fake negotiations that keeps the U.S. from actually having to be the aggressors still, is the fact that, according to Disclosed TV, there's 5 months of war. And 5 months of war with Iran have consumed virtually all U.S. stocks of long-range PRSM and the ACTMS missiles, and close to half the Tomahawk inventory, according to Reuters. So imagine 5 months of continually just poking at Iran, not really crippling, disabling, or not doing anything that's going to be detrimental to that nation state, by sending our ammunition over there. And of course, as I say, the best way for Iran to defeat the U.S. is just to make this a long, drawn out, and prolonged excursion where the U.S., because of their inability to keep this up, because all of our ammunition was given to Ukraine under the previous regime, that we have worn ourselves thin to where we're not built for the long game, because the U.S. never has and can win a war, because it's just not us. It's us needing the help of our allies. And no one's coming to bat for us the way that we are obviously trying to help them out, because once again, we're doing it in our own best interest, not necessarily theirs. But I believe this is a reason why the U.S. is slowing things down, because these 72 hours, 48 hours, or however long, there's calm and there's the deals being made. It's easy. It gives the military industrial complex more time to create more of these things here. And so that's why I'm saying they can only lie and juice the market so much before come Thursday and definitely Friday, because all Iran has to do is blow up a couple more U.S. base asset type of assets, and then what? They're gonna have to start hiding that from the mainstream media, because they can't respond back in timely manner right now. So the U.S. is not cut out for a long drawn out war, and that's why the lies will continue to increase and expand. And so that's just something that people should consider, because once again, the lies will only get worse. And so here is, another narrative. So between Trump, Besant, and Marco Rubio, now this is the media. This is the information we're getting from the media. So I'm going to play this for you so you can hear it. But this is more of the lies that's being sold that ultimately juice the market. So I'm going to turn up a little bit. So just listen to Marco Rubio give his
from the Qataris about their mediation. How do you see the possibilities of a deal with Iran and with their talks?
Well, I think there's two things to talk about when there's a deal. There's the big deal, which is the one that has to do with their nuclear ambitions. They can never have a nuclear weapon. The president's been clear about that. So the denuclearization of Iran is the ultimate deal. I think the immediate deal, the one that you see a lot of focus on, is the Straits. The Straits, there are ships moving through the Straits. There's oil moving right now through the Straits. So the Straits are open. Nonetheless, I think that there's a conversation and a negotiation that we are involved in between Oman and Iran on how more ships can be able to go through there safely in the short term as we move towards these longer term talks about denuclearization. And suffice it to say, there's been progress made in those talks, but not finality yet. We're hoping that will happen very shortly. Okay.
From the Qataris.
Okay, so there you have the admission that ships are moving there, and oil is moving, oil is flowing. But he didn't tell you that it was always moving. It was always flowing on the Iranian side. It's just not priced in USD. And so that is something that we will not be hearing no time soon. But yet, all of the lies and everything like that, when it adds up, that's what that's what I'm going to put it together as at this current moment. So just a little something there to consider. And what else? Of course, Donald Trump, talking about Japan and how, it's to our financial benefit that we help out Japan, because not only is it good for them, it's good for us, but it's also, as it says here, it's good for the world economy. So think about this. If the US did not step in, he's also not directly admitting the fact that it would not be good for the world economy if Japan continued to have issues, which of course they're going to, because there's no solving, fake debt created out of nowhere that's supposed to be paid back with, I guess, what, real value, real growth in a world of unlimited debt. So literally the world economy is at stake right now. That's why the US has to continue to lie and to push narratives and everything like that. So this is just what's happening in real time. While all along, what really matters to you and I, in reference to what we can control, is taking advantage of manipulation. And as you can see here, the ceiling is touched. $60 dropped, $4,100 gold dropped. This is what they don't want to get out of control at the end of the day. Wow. This becomes the primary focus. It says, let me give it to you here. It says 5 days and a 30% chance in a battle over Trump's crypto profits. So literally, a lot is at stake right here with this Clarity Act before Friday. So you better believe they're going to do everything they can in this regard here. There's going to be a complete bipartisan agreement, because everybody's future profits in reference to this digital future they're taking us to is at stake. And so this will right here, once this gets passed, it will, that's going to be the rally for the crypto space that will then result in the legacy markets, AI data, and all that other stuff going to the moon. And of course, Donald Trump is heavily positioned, so he's going to definitely get wealthier, and all the other Congress people who have positions. And if you speculate in the space, you're going to feel the effects of the rising valuation of all these digital products and tokens and services. But in actuality, it's just a sign of our currency going in the opposite direction. So, yeah, this is what's happening, man. Thought I would take a minute, share my 2 cents on fake news, fake markets, and the real negotiations that's taking place within the U.S. to juice the markets, not actually talking to Iran and things of that nature. So, but more of the same, nothing new. This is the world we live in, people. But with that being the case, that is all she wrote. Hope everyone has a blessed day. And once again, I'm still trying to work on clean up some things to get the RTD Live Talk call-in portion going again. Looking forward to doing that as well. So it's going to be a good day, interesting day. But for those who are plugged in, I don't know if I'm streaming on all cylinders. Hopefully I am. But if you found any value, any alternative perspective to filter through the noise, then feel free to hit that thumbs up, show your support for the channel. And other than that, enjoy your day. Be blessed, be safe, and I will catch you guys on the flip side.